Freedom 21 invites you to join a growing coalition of organizations and individuals who want to restore the great American Republic created by our founders. It will not be an easy battle. Powerful people and well-funded organizations are working to destroy the Republic, and they will succeed unless true patriots join the battle. The American Republic is defined in the Constitution by the election of senators by state legislatures, the Electoral College, limited enumerated powers, and the creation of legislation only by elected representatives, rather than by direct referendum or bureaucratic decree. We know that the 17th Amendment completely destroyed this element of the Republic. We know that the Electoral College is under attack. We certainly know that Congress has forgotten all about limited powers. And we know that the entire election process is threatened by labor unions and other activist groups. All of these issues must be addressed. But in this campaign, we will focus only on the first and perhaps the most important issue, repeal of the 17th Amendment. People have talked about repealing the 17th Amendment for decades, but so far there has been little agreement on exactly what should be done or how to do it. We are hopeful that this coalition will be able to solve both of these problems and more. Should we rely on Congress or call a constitutional convention? What's the right resolution? How do we build support?
The Constitution created a United States Senate in which each state legislature, not the voters at large, appointed 2 senators. Only in 1913, at the height of the Progressive Era, when the government started telling us how to live, did the 17th Amendment provide for the direct election of senators by voters. Now that may sound like more direct democracy, but it was the death knell of the idea that the federal government is a coming together of independent sovereign states. The 17th Amendment meant that the states no longer had a place at the federal table, along with the popularly elected House of Representatives and the president elected by the Electoral College. The very idea of the Constitution as an agreement among sovereign states has been assaulted. The 17th Amendment is the part of the Constitution that is unconstitutional.
Article 5 of the Constitution provides 2 ways to amend the Constitution. 2/3 of both houses can adopt an amendment that must be ratified by 3/4 of the state legislatures. Or 2/3 of the state legislatures can adopt resolutions compelling Congress to convene a convention for the purpose of proposing amendments.
When the founders wrote the Constitution, they devoted all of Article 5 to the process of amendments. 2 separate and distinct methods of proposing amendments to that Constitution were provided. Those proposed by Congress and those proposed by a special convention called for the purpose. Throughout the history of America, all amendments to the Constitution have been proposed by Congress. The convention method of amendment has never been used. What is an Article 5 convention anyway? Congress must call a constitutional convention, commonly called a con-con, when the legislatures of 2/3 of the states apply for one. Once the critical mass of 34 states has applied, Congress has no choice in the matter. The convention has to be called. The role of state legislatures in amending the United States Constitution is very limited. As a legislator, you have broad powers to deal with matters pertaining to the laws and the governing of your state. But your powers in the process of amending the federal Constitution are of a different kind. The Constitution grants powers to state legislatures to do something which is beyond the usual scope of their authority. The power to set in motion a process which can change the supreme law of the land. This extraordinary power is limited to the precise wording in Article 5. Let's take a close look at Article 5. As a legislator, you are given the powers to apply to Congress to call a convention, if you deem one to be necessary. But you are given no power to decide what topics the convention will consider, no power to write the desired amendment or amendments, and no power to say that the application is ineffective if a convention might violate any restrictions and limitations which you may want to include in your application. Article 5 clearly gives the power to propose amendments exclusively to the convention. This is explicit in the wording of the article, which sets up a three-step process. Step 1. The legislatures of the states apply to Congress to call a convention. Step 2. Congress calls the convention while deciding other details, such as where the convention may meet, how delegates are to be paid, and how much, how many delegates there will be, and how they are chosen. Note that nothing in the Constitution requires nor guarantees that delegates to a con will be elected by the people. Congress is given a free hand to determine the method of selecting these delegates. Congress itself could choose to make the appointment of delegates. Congress could provide that the state legislatures appoint delegates. In short, Congress is given a blank check to determine how convention delegates are to be chosen. And if a convention is called, it will be free to propose any kind and number of amendments to the same effect as if the limitations in the applications did not exist. In other words, although the applications are effective, all such limitations must be ignored. Chief Justice of the United States Warren Burger wrote, quote, "I have also repeatedly given my opinion that there is no effective way to limit or muzzle the actions of a constitutional convention. The convention could make its own rules and set its own agenda. Congress might try to limit the convention to one amendment or to one issue, but there is no way to assure that the convention would obey. After a convention is convened, it will be too late to stop the convention if we don't like its agenda." These leading legal scholars agree. No one can mandate a limited, single-issue constitutional convention.
With full awareness of just how difficult it will be to convince senators to vote for an amendment that will place their election in the hands of state legislatures, we still believe the congressional resolution method of amending the Constitution is far better than risking the chaos that would surely arise from a constitutional convention, especially since Congress has a blank check to choose the delegates. We think people power is a far better way to go. We're proposing that coalition members urge their state legislatures to adopt the same resolution, which calls on the state's congressional delegation to sponsor and support the constitutional amendment that is incorporated into the resolution the state legislatures adopted. Here's the resolution. Whereas the authors of the Constitution for the United States of America deliberately required senators to be elected by state legislatures in order to provide a check and balance between the federal government and state governments, and whereas adoption of the 17th Amendment erased that check and balance between the federal government and state governments, and whereas the federal government has persistently expanded its power over state governments since the adoption of the 17th Amendment, and whereas The 10th Amendment to the Constitution has been continually weakened due to states not having their powers protected as originally intended by the framers of the Constitution. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the congressional delegation of the state of your state is urged and implored to introduce, co-sponsor, and work diligently to adopt the following proposed amendment. Proposed Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America. Section 1. The 17th Amendment is hereby repealed. Section 2. The legislature of each state shall, in the year a senator's term expires, meet in joint session and elect by joint vote a senator to represent the state. Section 3. In the event that the legislature fails to elect a senator by the date of the general election at which representatives are elected, or in the event of a vacancy, the governor shall make a temporary appointment of a senator, who shall serve until such time as the legislature elects a permanent senator to complete the term. Look at Section 2. We're requiring that the state legislature meet in joint session and elect their senator by a joint vote, to dispel one of the arguments used to adopt the 17th Amendment in the first place. Many state legislatures often had one party in control of the House and another party in control of the Senate. In some instances, this prevented the state from even electing a senator. Section 2 should eliminate this possibility. But if political warfare prevails, the governor will solve the problem. It should be fairly easy to convince state legislatures that states need representation in the federal government, and that representation can be restored by repealing the 17th Amendment. Congressional delegations, however, especially sitting senators, progressives, and the media, will fight this initiative vigorously.
In the race for the Idaho 1st Congressional District Republican nomination, Tea Party Boise has endorsed one Raul Labrador over the Republican Party favorite Vaughn Ward. This after Ward changed his mind and withdrew his support for a Tea Party pet project, the repeal of the 17th Amendment. 17th Amendment, women's suffrage, end of prohibition, something about miscegenation? Nope. The Senate of the United States shall be composed of 2 senators from each state, elected by the people thereof for 6 years, and each senator shall have 1 vote. The 17th Amendment gave voters the right to choose their senators. It passed in 1912. Pretty popular. And the Tea Party wants it repealed. The group is demanding a return of power from the elites to the streets, but wants to go back to the old system by which senators were chosen by state legislatures, usually in corrupt backroom deals. Seriously, make senators even more remote from the will of the people. Genius, I tells you. Genius. This might require a few changes to some of those Tea Party slogans. Stop voter fraud. Stop voting. Don't mess with our Constitution, except this part. Repeal the 16th Amendment. I mean 17th. And my favorite, don't tread on me. Just take away my vote.
Despite this anticipated opposition, coalition organizations can be prepared and exert the power of the people on state legislative candidates and on candidates for Congress. It will take a rational, methodical campaign with the public and a persistent but polite persuasion of elected officials. It will not happen quickly, but it will never happen if we don't try. We invite you to visit our website, join our mail list, read the preliminary argument for repealing the 17th Amendment, register your opinion for, against, or don't know about repealing the amendment. Visit the resolution page. We have posted 4 resolutions that have been advanced by various organizations. Read them all and vote for the one you think is best. If your organization shares our desire to restore the Republic and can help in the effort to repeal the 17th Amendment, we invite you to join the coalition. It costs nothing. You may want your organization to be the lead organization in your state, with the goal of getting your legislature to adopt the repeal resolution. We need organizations in every state working in coordination with the lead organization. Complete this form and let's get started. We need to identify organizations in every state. Organizations that are chosen to be lead organizations will be identified with a star. Other organizations will be identified with a flag. We need to fill this map with a star in every state and dozens of flags in all the states from coast to coast. Neither legislators nor the media will take us seriously unless we present a strong, informed, coordinated argument for the repeal of the 17th Amendment. We will need to schedule educational workshops and rallies in every town and city and state. We will need to distribute literature. We will need to write letters to the editor and call talk radio shows. We'll need to work at this task. The repeal of the 17th Amendment is an incredibly ambitious challenge. It is a challenge we can meet. If we are to restore our republic and save this great nation, it is a challenge we must meet. Everyone can do something to help. Sign up for our email alerts. Get your organization to join the coalition. Get literature and share it with your neighbors and elected officials. Attend workshops and rallies. Let your elected officials know that you intend to vote only for candidates who pledge to help repeal the 17th Amendment.